Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. Welcome, Linda. How are you doing?
Hi. Nice to see you guys. Thank you for having me on.
Yes. Thank you for being on the show. So, people out there, Linda she had I guess, trauma later or earlier in life, and she has been in this transformation over the past 20 years of just really helping people out, and women, in the sense of being strong and powerful.
That's true.
Yes, and you've worn a number of different hats.
Yes, I have. I started 20 years ago as a personal trainer and moved on to get my certifications as a senior fitness expert, a nutrition expert, exercise therapy expert, and over the course of time became a wellness expert as well, dealing with all of my clients and all of their emotional trauma that they bring to every hour that I meet with them.
Wow. How did you know that, hey, I needed to make a change? Sometimes we're so distraught and we're like, I don't know where my next meal, I don't know how to wake up, I don't know how to get out of bed. I can't do anything.
Do you know what did it for me? My daughters. I felt like it was my duty to do the right thing because they were watching me. And I knew they were watching. And even though they were little, they're like sponges. You know how that is. And I knew that it was my duty to make sure that I was a good role model for them. I knew in my heart what was going on was wrong. I mean, you know a toxic relationship when you're in it. You just don't know how to get out of it. But when you have incentive like that, that's how you know.
Wow. I'm curious, when you were growing up, did you see a toxic relationship versus a positive? Yeah.
Yes. Growing up, I talk about it in my book, actually, Nerves of Steel, where I grew up in a family. I had a stepfather who was, not very nice, and there were a couple of other, men along the way who also treated me poorly. And I knew it was wrong, but when we're kids, we know right from wrong, and we have our boundaries set, right? Because we know what we don't like. But unfortunately, we can't count on adults respecting those boundaries. So over time, we become conditioned to just people, treating us poorly and crossing boundaries. And, it's usually not until a little bit later in life where we finally put our foot down and say, yeah, this isn't going to happen anymore. I need to do something about it. But I was able to recognize it early on because I knew it was wrong. You feel right from wrong, even when you're a little kid.
Yeah, they say of almost 60% of Americans, and I think sometimes that's even higher, experience at least one adverse reaction in childhood. But we don't sometimes want to say it because we feel guilty. People, first thing, I don't know if anybody realized, we don't pick our family.
Right.
We're thrown from whatever.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, but people feel bad about, saying, hey, this was trauma in my childhood because they this group of people raised me.
Right. And those are the ones that they're hardest to say goodbye to. And I address that a number of times in my book. There will always come a point in somebody's life where they're going to have to say goodbye to somebody that they love. It's rare that you don't have to at some point in your life. But if you want to get out of any kind of toxic situation, you're probably going to have to one day say goodbye to somebody you love, whether it be a family member, a friend, a coworker, a significant other. It's probably going to happen.
Yeah. And Linda, I think when you do that, you learn how to choose you.
You do. And you know what? It becomes easier over time.
Yeah.
Every time you do it, I can't remember the last time I eliminated a toxic situation in my life or person and looked back. I don't know the last time I looked back after, getting rid of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that's really a struggle for a lot of people, even that love for self, because they feel like they're being selfish, or they love other people more. They don't love
Yes.
themselves, codependent,
Yes.
whatever we want to call it.
Yeah. That's true. And, I think the best advice I can give on that is you have to learn the difference between being empathetic towards somebody and letting your boundaries be crossed. Because you can, be empathetic and you can feel for somebody and you can understand why they're behaving the way they do. But when they start crossing your boundaries and they start making your life difficult, that's when you have to really start to, put your foot down. And it's difficult. It's difficult to get to that point in life. And it's usually not until a little bit later in life that we're able to identify that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And in the sense of, boundaries, and I know your mission, you use the word steal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. Tell me, how did that come about?
Well, my name came about, actually, it evolved. I was doing workout videos for a company called Run Style, and I was working along with a man who we referred to as Iron Mike. And somebody came along and said, we need Linda to have this powerful name. What could we call her? And somebody said, I know, let's call her Linda Steele. And it just, iron and steel, and it just stuck. And I built my brand around it. And it really started to make sense, because it just so happened to follow every different aspect of my life, whether it be the workout part, whether it be the boundaries part that I was setting, whether it be the authoritative figure that I was for a lot of my clients. I'm a business owner, so there's always that. I have, hundreds of clients who rely on my words of wisdom, and so I'm authoritative, to them. So it just really stuck. It fit, and that's how I built my brand.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just thinking, how can I put it? To that exercise and that wellness aspect, that sometimes you have to push, and you feel like when you first started exercising, you feel some pain. You're like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to do this. That's the same when you start setting your boundaries.
It sure is. It sure is. And you have to get past that. I tell my clients all the time, if you can get past the first 2 weeks, you could do it. If you get past the first month, you could stick with it. But it's like walking through glass. You feel like it's just so painful that you don't want to complete it. But if you could only have a crystal ball and know what's on the other end, you would wonder why you didn't just jump right in. But we don't all have a crystal ball, and we don't know how our story's going to end. And but what most people don't realize is we have more control over how our story is going to end than we think. And if we could build our confidence, which is where the workouts and the eating right and getting yourself in shape and getting yourself to feel good physically, when you start feeling good physically, you start feeling good mentally. All of a sudden your confidence builds. And before you know it, you start making decisions that you thought you could never make. But it really comes from within. You really have to first become confident in yourself, your abilities. You start thinking clearly when you start working out and eating right. That's when your decision-making skills really start to, to be dead on. You don't think twice about the decisions you're making at that point.
Right. And I was just thinking about it, even in the sense of like an organism in some aspect, when you're in a conflict within,
Mm-hmm.
you're liking yourself, you're putting yourself down, you're liking yourself, you're putting yourself down. It's a conflict within. Then
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to be strong to deal with the conflicts outside if
Right.
you're not, united together.
Right.
And you're talking about being united in all aspects, from the health, the food, the exercise.
All of it. All of it matters.
Mm-hmm.
I wound up at a certain point while I was going through my workouts or my getting into shape. I had a number of people in the background telling me, nobody gets in shape and stays in shape. This is going to be a big waste of your time. It's not going to happen. And these were some of the same people who tried to hold me back in the first place throughout my entire life. And I feel like, if I can use an analogy, I feel like I used their negative words as stepping stones for me to propel myself to the next level. Every time I was in the middle of squatting, I mean, everybody knows what leg day is like. It's very difficult, but I still find myself when I'm squatting, if there are those last 5 reps that I'm trying to get through, I still think of those people in my life that told me that I was going to fail. And it's almost like, that phrase, hold my beer, watch this. I have that. And I almost use, that's why I say, one of the catchphrases in my book is taking negative energy and using it for positive change. That's what I've forced myself to do. That's what I've taught myself to do over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And so I'm glad that you taught yourself how to do that.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure exactly what did it. I think just I had enough people not think I was going to be able to make it on my own. They tried to, hold me back, and I knew they were wrong. I knew life had to be better than the toxic situations I was in, and I was going to pursue it.
Right.
So you created your new normal from what it used to be, because just thinking about growing up, there's a normal that's created for you with your family, and so, like you said, turning that switch off and turning all that into the positive adult that you are today, and then a lot of your choices and decisions become unconsciously for the betterment of you.
100%. And this doesn't just go for relationship wise, our adult relationships. The premise of the show is to talk about how our childhood trauma or our past trauma affects our adult relationships. And yes, it does, but that's not just your intimate relationships. This is your friendships, your coworkers, your work situation, your work environment. It really happens to us more than we think. We find ourselves in toxic situations that we need to get out of.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I am hearing for you is you didn't let other people rent space up here.
And part of that is, I know that the listeners are going to agree with this. If you make a change that, maybe one of your friends is recommending, you can make this change, and you're going to have 10 other of your friends, family members look at you like you're crazy. You cannot please everybody. And here we are, when, depending on the type of trauma we had in our lives, we wind up being people pleasers, and we're always trying to look for approval and acceptance and, all of those things. And so we wind up constantly trying to pivot and try to change to make people happy. And what happens is we pivot to make one person happy, and we make 5 others mad. And so that's when you finally say, you know what, you throw your hands in there and say, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't care. It only has to work for me. It doesn't have to work for you. It doesn't have to work for you. And again, that goes back to having the confidence to make decisions for yourself and own them. We don't know how things are going to turn out, but we know we have the control. There's only one person in charge of you when you're an adult, and that's you. And if you can accept that and learn that, and know it's okay if you make a mistake. It's okay that, if you made a left turn, that, oops, it didn't go as, that saying, oops, that didn't go as planned. Yeah, you're going to say that when you make decisions. But then you get back on track, and you set yourself up again for success.
Yes. Okay. If there's somebody out there that's listening and they're stuck, maybe they're in an abusive or toxic relationship, what are 3 tips that you could let them know that they should?
Well, one of my favorite things that I did, again, I write about it in my book, is my first relationship, my first toxic relationship that I was in as an adult. I had a 5-year plan to get out of it. And that seems like an awful long time, but I was dependent on this person financially. And so I had to get a 5-year plan together, which included finishing my college degree so that I would make sure that I would be in a better tax bracket when I went out to get a job. I had to make sure that my kids were old enough for me to not have to pay for a babysitter or throw them with someone else to take care of them. They were all going to be in school during my working hours. I wanted to make sure that I was going to get my body in shape, not just because someone else was going to see me naked one day, but because I needed to build the confidence to get out there and just feel good about myself. And whether it be for looking for a job or looking for, a significant other, that also taught my kids, how to take care of themselves as well. And so these are certain things that, that I had to do in order to set myself up so that I wouldn't have to sell my house and so forth, that I, wouldn't have to make too many drastic changes for my kids. So 5-year plan, that's what it took me. Hopefully not everybody needs that long. Most people as adults, they make their own money. And, but sometimes we get used to a lifestyle, which is kind of what happened in my second bad relationship. I became really used to a lifestyle that I wasn't really crazy about leaving. And sorry, I'm distracted by somebody who just wrote something on the screen. That's actually a really good point.
Yes.
So I was, so if you have to just accept the fact that you are going to maybe have a different lifestyle, but it's okay, because I've yet to come across a person who hasn't made these hard decisions to end a toxic relationship who regretted it. I've yet to meet one person. And a lot of times you don't realize how bad it is until it's gone. Right. And you don't wake up with that anxiety every day, and you don't go to sleep with that anxiety every day. When you wake up happy and you just don't even realize how bad it was until it's gone.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And so, just like Jamar, as I guess, is thanking you for just, stating all of this, which is really important. And as you're saying, and as Ryan is saying, even when people go to Disney World, trying to make everyone happy, but you really have to learn how to focus on yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And JJ mentions the 7 stages of traumatic bonding. Yes, all of it.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So if people are out there listening and they're like, hey, I want to get to know her, I want to connect with her, how can we find you and connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Linda Steele Wellness. I am on Instagram, same thing. I am on Facebook, Linda Steele Wellness 1, maybe. You can email me. I'm easy to get a hold of via email. Linda Steele Wellness, Linda@lindasteelewellness.com.
Okay, yes. And staying again, I guess, Jamar talks about again that we cannot please other people all the time. We've got to, you also, I think when you even travel, they say to put on the mask first.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to learn how to take care of yourself.
And you know what? He also mentioned something about narcissists. Now, that word is being thrown around like crazy right now. So I hate to actually say the word because we don't know who's actually been diagnosed and not diagnosed. But, most people can tell that style of person when they see it. And one of the things that if we could only recognize that you cannot reason with an unreasonable person. And typically that style of person is very unreasonable. You know that style because you find yourself arguing and trying to make them understand you. And when they don't understand you, you come at it from a different angle. So when you're dealing with that type of person. And it's best to just take a step back, not bother. You have to sometimes just knock at the last word, because you can't reason with these types of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that just made me think, especially when people are also drinking.
Oh,
yeah. I just have to mention that. Yeah. No sense in arguing with, a drunk and that aspect.
Yes. Treat them like that, as if they were a drunk.
Right. And when I asked you about the tips, one of the things you said earlier was about the essentials, the safety, Yeah. And that's when you have to always remember to be safe.
Yep.
Because safety is everything.
Right. I have a comment coming in that said I was in an abusive relationship and his family blamed me every time why I got him angry. I was in a situation like that too. When I finally divorced my husband, I had a lot of his family mad at me, and I questioned why, because I finally put my foot down. Now I'm the bad guy. How does that happen? But that's what happens. They even have their family fooled, these types of people. You're fooled yourself, and then eventually you snap to it. But some of their family members are so fooled by their, charm or something, I don't even know what, that they don't see it. And again, be prepared to lose your family members, be prepared to have to change your friends, be prepared. But again, it's not as big, like, you get through it. I promise you'll get through it.
Mm-hmm. And the best thing is to choose yourself, and it's okay because you cannot divorce yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so when you choose other people and you don't choose yourself, that's when that's that big conflict.
Oh yeah. You could get stuck in something for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You start feeling sorry for this person. You start listening to their reasoning. You start, thinking that, making excuses for them. That's when you really get stuck.
Right. But if people out there listening, they should definitely check out the book Nerves of Steel.
Yes.
And is it located in all the?
It's on Amazon, and I also have a website called nervesofsteel.net, and that will direct you directly to Amazon as well. But nervesofsteel.net is the website for the book.
All right, then. Thank you so much for being in the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. April. Thank you, Coach K. I appreciate you guys having me.
Okay.